Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We're talking about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. Now this is one of the more deceptive weeks for the Hot 100. Not that it was a bad or a good week, we will get to that, but from first glance, not a lot seemed to really change or evolve. I mean, the top 10 barely seemed to shift at all, and we only have 7 songs, new or returning to talk about, only 5 new songs. But look a little bit deeper and you'll start to see a fair amount of traffic lower in the charts. Some of it that I expected, but a fair bit that actually did manage to surprise me. But before that, let's start with the area that saw the least amount of change. The top 10. Unsurprisingly, Uptown Funk by Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars easily holds sway at the top thanks to huge airplay gains and absolutely dominating sales and streaming. In an easy second place, Thinking Out Loud by Ed Sheeran is holding on to second across the board. In other words, pretty much the same as last week. And with neither song showing signs of slowing down, this will probably continue. Where things start to get a little bit more interesting is with Hozier's Take Me to Church at number 3, which has started to slow a little bit in sales and seem to be coming close to peaking in airplay. It's got a solid enough hold against Taylor Swift's Blank Space though, which is holding on mostly thanks to YouTube and established airplay, but it has peaked there, and the sales weren't stellar this week. And now the next 4 songs owe their increased position more to the losses of the song that was originally ahead of them more than anything else. Well, okay, let's be fair here. Sugar by Maroon 5 might be the exception with the strong sales and streaming and slowly starting to pick up airplay, but Lips Are Moving by Meghan Trainor is holding steady, mostly based on YouTube and airplay as sales and streaming get shakier and shakier. And I'm Not the Only One by Sam Smith and Jealous by Nick Jonas, they're losing airplay, streams, and sales pretty quickly. They only gain positions because Taylor Swift's Shake It Off seems to have finally lost its second win and is finally going into that nosedive, propped up most on YouTube and whatever airplay it's got left. Now rounding out the top 10, we've got Centuries by Fall Out Boy, which I get the feeling it's only holding onto its slot because of consistency pretty much across the board, not because of any great gains that it might get. Sometimes though, to get in the top 10, it's enough. Now let's talk about our dropouts and losers, where things are getting more interesting. As expected, the exits of Black Widow by Iggy Azalea featuring Rita Ora and Don't Tell 'Em by Jeremiah featuring YG. That's just a remnants of 2014 getting flushed away, along with Calvin Harris's collaboration with John Newman called Blame. Hell, you can make the case for Steal My Girl by One Direction and Iggy Azalea's Beg For It dropping to 99 and 83 respectively. Same sort of thing. But really, if you want to see the big drops, you need to look at country music because 4 songs took major hits this week from that genre alone. Some are naturally fading of the song running their course. Perfect Storm by Brad Paisley went to 93 and Shotgun Rider by Tim McGraw dropping to 74, prime evidence of all of that. But the losses for Kenny Chesney's Till It's Gone and Something in the Water by Carrie Underwood dropping to 86 and 55 respectively, those did surprise me a little more, mostly because there isn't much coming up on the country charts to really replace them, and I honestly thought Carrie Underwood might have some more staying power with that song. And outside of country, Earned It by The Weeknd dropped to 38. It confused me too. Sure, all the gains last week are from the video, and I figured the drop this week would be a little bit more or mild than it is because it's clear the hype from 50 Shades of Grey hasn't died yet, and Ellie Goulding's song Love Me Like You Do for that movie gained a lot more this week, almost in the top 10. Now the last 2 losers, Waves by Mr. Probs and The Hangin' Tree by Jennifer Lawrence from Mockingjay, they don't so much surprise me that they're dropping, but that they were hits in the first place. Now granted, they did add some real variety to the charts that I did appreciate, and I hold that as a sleeper hit, Waves is actually pretty damn good, but still, it just kind of confused me a little bit here. And then we get to our gains. It looks as if the charts are trying desperately to plug the holes in the top 10 they will know will be coming in the next future weeks, especially with the rising success of Time of Our Lives by Pitbull and Neo surging up to 11, and the massive jump for Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paul McCartney's 4 5 Seconds to number 15, almost entirely based on sales, because it's not like you're finding that song anywhere on YouTube. Ahem. It's a similar case, I reckon, for Truffle Butter by Nicki Minaj, Drake, and Lil Wayne. Even despite the bewildering strength of Only, which is just crap, Nicki's other singles simply haven't taken off in the same way, not like this. More bizarre are some of the other gains. I mean, She Knows by Neo and Juicy J going to 25. That makes sense. He dropped an album that nobody seems to care about or have requested that I cover whatsoever. And Kelly Clarkson's Heartbeat song, some of that is just priming up for the video, which actually just dropped, and the effects of that will be coming up fairly soon. But Trap Queen by Fetty Wap somehow rising to 72. Somebody by Natalie LaRose featuring Jeremiah going to 76. Dangerous by David Guetta featuring Sam Martin somehow getting a second wind and rising to 87. All these don't seem to make a lot of sense to me, as Dangerous had lost all its momentum. Trap Queen is patently ridiculous, and it really is only here because of YouTube and going viral, and somebody left so little of an impression on me that I can barely remember it, and I reviewed it just a week ago. Well, putting all that aside, let's take a look at our new chart arrivals, starting with our returning entries.
Yeah.
point, I think the song is just destined to fade on and off of the charts whenever there's space, really, because it's not doing a lot else and it only gets worse every single time I hear it, unfortunately. Next.
Hello, my only one, just like the morning sun.
Now look, this song is only charting now because there's a video. That's pretty much it, really, because I stand by what I said originally about this song. It's not bad, but it feels more like an album deep cut than a lead-off single. What I find interesting about it is that if this is gonna be indicative of the sound of Kanye's next album, and for all appearances, Paul McCartney's producing that, we might be getting 808s and Heartbreak Part 2, or at least some form close to it. I'm not quite sure how I feel about that, but color me interested, to say the least. Now, those were our few returning entries. Now into the new arrivals, starting with number 96, I Bet by Ciara. So, did you know that Ciara and Future were actually a couple for a while? Better question. Did you care? Did anyone care? An R&B starlet that made mostly good music, but nothing that really interested me throughout her career, paired with one of the most worst hip-hop artists working today? Well, okay, apparently they're not a couple anymore, and Ciara's lead-off single for her new album this year titled Jackie is addressing it. And honestly, as much as I can't stand Future in any way, the reason I like I Bet is more because this is one of Ciara's better songs in a really long time for me. Pairing trap hi-hats with the gentle guitars puts me in the mindset of mid to late 90s R&B, and Ciara using more of her soulful lower range is a really solid fit for it, which is a lot to nail the balance between a righteous kiss-off and that ending where it's clear there's still some residual feelings that haven't quite faded yet, so it feels very real and human and complicated. If I were to criticize anything about the song, it'd probably be in some of the backing shouts throughout the verses that sound a little bit like Future, or maybe they just outright sampled him. And while I get why they are there in the first place, they just felt a little bit out of place, just for me. Still, for a more melodic, downbeat R&B breakup jam, it's a damn good one, highly recommended. Number 95, Talking Body by Tove. You got a perfect one, so put it on me. Swear it won't take you long. Okay, it would have been my choice for a single to follow Habits Stay High, but really the charts are better with more Tove Lo, at least in my opinion, and Talking Body, pretty solid song. I can't say I'm a huge fan of the elongated syllables in the chorus. That synth on the second verse near the background is not exactly one I like, and there really is too much reverb on anything, but I really dig this song regardless. Tove Lo's got a lot of charisma and personality, and while I'm not quite sure sultry is in her wheelhouse, I'd argue the song isn't quite supposed to be sexy so much as it is Tove Lo using that sexual connection as therapeutic. Plus, the percussion progression over the chorus is surprisingly propulsive, and while it's not as good as Time Bomb or Not on Drugs, for a simple pop song, it works. I'll take it. Number 92, Chains by Nick Jonas. You got me in chains for your love, but I wouldn't change. Okay, look. I didn't review Nick Jonas's self-titled album mostly because I have been underwhelmed by everything Jonas Brothers related since the mid-2000s. I didn't like him then, and considering how much I can't stand Jealous, I had no reason to check out this album whatsoever. Well, the odd thing is that Chains sounds nothing like Jealous. Now, I'm half convinced that this song is charting because of, you all guessed it, 50 Shades of Grey. And you know what the funny thing is that of the songs peripherally related to it that aren't a Beyonce re-release, this is probably the best of those songs. Now, I'm not saying that it's a great track. Nick Jonas's attempts to mimic Justin Timberlake in the style of Sexy Back really isn't all that convincing, and the lyrics do feel a little bit underwritten and honestly a little bit cliched for this style of song, but there's a fair bit to like about it in the instrumentation and production. The faded strumming, the pseudo-gothic swell of the backing synth, the eerie backing vocals, and the roiling swell of the beat, more varied percussion, and production that's on the upper end for pop music all contribute to a track that's certainly better than what I would usually expect from Nick Jonas, what I was expecting going into it. I'm not gonna call it a great song or say it makes me a fan of him, but I've definitely heard worse, so yeah, the song's fine enough, I'll take it. Number 81, Budapest by George Ezra. Golden grand piano, my beauty focused EOU. Ooh, you. Well, it took you long enough. Like Ella Henderson, George Ezra has been a thing in the UK for months now before ever touching the American Hot 100, following in the wake of the blues rock, folk rock revival over there that kind of fizzled out in the US 2 years ago. And George Ezra knows his stuff too, which helps, going beyond obvious Dylan influences to very early folk and blues acts like Lead Belly and Howlin' Wolf. And while he doesn't quite have the raw power of an act like, say, Hosier, or maybe even Ed Sheeran's cover of Make It Rain, which has really grown on me, his thicker baritone does have a weathered dignity to it that I do appreciate. appreciate. And for as simple as the lyrics are, kind of fitting in that retro style, I like the sentiment of ditching material wealth to find true love. Yeah, sure, it's been done to death, but it's handled properly here. If I were to nitpick though, it would come down to the production instrumentation. I like some of the distorted snarl that comes through on the bridge, and that 5-note guitar flutter in the background. It's a nice touch, but I think I'd like the song a little bit more with a little bit more of a ragged edge or fire. Probably would sound a lot better live. As it is, it's a little bit too composed on the album cut. Doesn't quite call to mind that whirlwind romance that George Ezra is proposing here. But as it is, it's still good. Works for me. And finally, number 75, Shots by Imagine Dragons. Okay, for all of those of you who keep on asking in the comments, yes, I'm going to be reviewing Smoke and Mirrors by Imagine Dragons. Hell, I like Imagine Dragons. It's not like anything else is dropping in February. Of course I'll be covering them. That said, I didn't really like I Bet My Life, and seeing that they were going to be opening their new album with a song called Shots that put me more in the mind of LMFAO and Lil Jon, it didn't exactly enthuse me. But okay, how's the song? Well, you know how I've said in the past that Dan Reynolds' vocals remind me a lot of Bono? Here, they prove it, because this song is early 90s U2, from the guitar flutter to the more textured percussion, to Dan Reynolds embracing his higher register and his falsetto. The biggest difference here is in the synthesizers, but honestly, they fit, adding a certain rubbery, elastic punch to the song that I really liked. And hell, the lyrics feel very U2 as well. Broadly sketched, very well framed, mournful at the breakup caused by his own failures and screw-ups, and yet sincere enough to crave for it to return. They really do work. They have that emotional impact. I do wish Dan Reynolds had delivered a little bit more of his raw edge to this song, but you know what, that's the same thing I'd say about U2 from the early 90s, so go figure. In other words, I really hope this charts and does well, because with U2 operating at half strength in 2014 off of their last album, Songs of Innocence, we could definitely do with more rock in this vein on the pop charts. And you know what? The song is pretty damn great all the same. Definitely recommended. So as I said, it's a bit of a deceptive week, but overall, pretty damn good one, because there's not a new song that dropped this week that I don't like in some way, which means picking a worst of the week is kind of tough. I mean, I guess if I'm pushed, I'll give it to I Mean It by G-Eazy featuring Remo for a second time, but even a dishonorable mention's tough here. I guess it'd be only one by Kanye West and Paul McCartney for the wasted potential and the fact that it's not really a bad song though, it's just an odd one. It's more of a curiosity than anything else. As for the best, okay, not even a contest. I'll take Imagine Dragons imitating U2 any day, and Shots easily walks away with this, with I Bet by Ciara right behind him. After a pretty mediocre week last week, it's nice to see things finally starting to look up a bit. Let's hope these ones chart. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.